Welcome to Leaders Path, leadership journeys of people within the IT and business change professions. Brought to you by Middleton's Assured Talent, IT leadership and business change recruitment specialists.
Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of Leaders Path. This is the video blog and podcast brought to you by Middleton's Assured Talent. So far, all going well in terms of the feedback that we're receiving for these, so hopefully that will continue to grow. So today we've got a senior technologist with us, someone I've known again for a few years. It's been great asking people in my network to join me on these. I think I first met Steve, I think I ran behind him for a number of miles on a local running trail to our workplace. I never did quite catch him up. But no, it'd be great to hear from Steve. He's someone, I guess, that's shown how you can really progress your career but stay quite technical. I know something in the industry that there's not necessarily presumption, but the path to progression become limited if you don't necessarily want to be a manager sometimes. Whereas Steve's, he has managed and done a range of things. I guess I still see him as a true technologist, but obviously he will tell you more about that. So over to you, Steve, with the first question. So when you meet someone in a social networking situation, how do you describe what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you kind of touched upon it already by basically saying I do various other things. And I suppose I do say I'm a jack of all trades. What I am is a consultant, technical consultant, and have been a contractor, gone in various companies and helped them to work on projects, bring in agile information, agile education, but also another facet of my role is I'm currently a director of a software company in Leeds called Aduco Digital, and we're trying to do things slightly differently. As always, everybody is trying to do things differently. And what we're trying to do is work in a more collaborative way with clients and people. That's what they are, people, not clients. They're people you deal with. And such that I think for most agencies, they're kind of, both parties, whenever you go into an agreement, are on a losing battle. It's how much can we get of what we originally asked for the cost, and nobody really knows what they're after when they start a project. So what we're trying to do at Aduco is work in a collaborative way with them and say, look, we will be part of your team. We'll learn things as you're learning what your requirements are. We'll work in a collaborative way, in an agile way, and what you think you might want now probably isn't what you're going to want or need right at the start, right at the end. And what we're trying to do at the moment is just get some traction behind that, working with some other customers in Leeds and trying to do that as well. It's getting ourselves out there and known for doing things the same but different, being more of a partnership than a third party coming in to understand how it's going to be, and then we go to negotiation by contract on change control and all this kind of stuff to get to what the people wanted.
Yeah. So you're a man of many roles at the moment, then.
Yeah. It's one thing I have been doing recently is I was working for a social media company, and I was at one stage I was Scrum Master, technical architect, developer, chief tea maker, cake bringer to try and
motivate the guys.
Yeah, and it works. So
motivation by cake is definitely a core technique of all good leaders. So take us to the beginning then. So what in brief, where did you start and how did you get to where you are now?
Well, I remember being in my school library and not knowing, and I was, I think, 15, 16, not really knowing what I wanted to do, and everybody's telling me, this is going to age me now, this was the 80s, late 80s, basically saying, if you get a job in computing, you'll have a job for life. And I had an interest in computing, had a VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 and all those kinds of things. It was, very similar things. So I ended up doing a BTEC course at Park Lane College in Leeds, and that was Computing for Business. And then I still hadn't really worked out what I wanted to do. So I ended up doing a degree in computing at Northumbria University up in Newcastle. 4 years there, learning stuff, and it was, right, well, I'm doing computing, so I best go find a computing role. So I ended up working for various companies, Nestle in York. I worked for a consultancy down in Camberley, where they basically put you on site and you are the expert, even though you've just read the manual the night before. This is the time before the internet, so this was books.
Right.
Actually, you were king in the department if you had the most books. Forget the internet, forget Google or Yahoo or whatever.
Yeah.
Who had the best book collection to solve the issues. And then various jumped around a bit, and then ended up working for East Sky B in Leeds, Harrogate, creating websites for football teams and various things. Ended up working on a website called At the Races, which is a horse racing website, which we migrated into Azure. So that was my first taste of Azure, Microsoft's cloud offering, which is very good. Became more of a proper consultant contractor role, and then ended up doing various bits of work. Ended up working for this social media company. It was called Fans. It was a great idea, and then I've just recently left because they've shifted development to China, and now a whole new horizon.
Yeah, here you are now.
So basically, it's been one of those things where actually, if you trace it back, why am I here? Kind of thing. It's almost not coincidence, but it's just pure. I did that. And it was. I think in essence, it was the things that people saying you will always have a job in computing, and it is true. And I think computing is becoming such a term that it's easy to throw away. There's different aspects of computing now. I always kind of relate it to medicine, where at one stage everybody was a doctor in medicine. So they were, whether or not they were a surgeon, a GP, or whatever, they were finding things out. And I can see computing going down a similar route where you have to specialise to be good at something. And you can be a general practitioner, which I suppose I class myself as, but then you'll have to have network issue. You need to know the in-depth of network, or if you need to, for example, doing architecture, look at all the aspects of architecture that you have to look at, performance, scalability, and all those kinds of things. And I think as computing matures, you do need a base level.
Yeah, understand.
You then kind of have to say, what is it that lights my fire? So, and I can see that really coming. The amount of it's spreading so much. The depth of knowledge that you need to have.
Yeah, but the demands, I can see it from my side, in a recruitment point of view, the demand for, and particularly in the development side of computing, is just so high and not going to go away, because it's intrinsic to everything now, isn't it? And the next stage of Internet of Things, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Your fridge is going to tell you you've run out of milk.
Yeah.
You just open up the door.
Yeah. Well, no. I want notification on my phone. But yeah, the demand's not going away. But the supply of people coming into it, it decreased at a certain point. I think the recession didn't do the industry much favours from people developing the skill set. I also have seen, and maybe this is something you've seen when you've gone out hiring people, there's a lot of people going through, whether university or other sort of means, learning development, let's say, but learning it without understanding the basics. And I guess that's what you're kind of saying. You need to understand the bigger picture and then specialise, rather than necessarily, right, we're going to teach you to do this one very specific thing over there, program in that particular language, but without the core understanding of what's going on.
The key is to understand the concepts within the program.
Yeah.
When I 2000, nobody was doing COBOL, and then it was like, right, we now need to fix all these year 2000 bugs, and then since it's gone off again. But it was the concepts of understanding how a programming language works and how to put things together, how to construct a program, how to construct a sentence, I suppose, as well, in the same respect. And that's what's key. But there's another key factor, I think, as well, and you just tweaked my mind. When recruiting, you can have all the skills on the CV. The most important thing for myself is how can you actually have a conversation with the person? Can they tell you something about themselves? And I don't really want to know what the latest computing thing is that they've done, or they've got a Raspberry Pi to talk to their fridge to, and then plug it into Tesco's to get some milk delivered. What I'm interested in is able to have a conversation, and computing is with Agile and Lean and all those kinds of things. That is becoming
more prevalent.
More important to be able to communicate. And gone are the days, hopefully, where people in IT do not talk to other people, are seen as that lot over there. As a profession, we need to move far away from that as possible. We're professionals, we have opinions, we may have problems talking to people sometimes, or how we're explaining things, they don't understand it. So it's almost a translation where we have to learn to talk technical and also non-technical to explain.
So is that, and leads me on to the, one of the questions I asked, is that how you recognise talented people then? Is it a combination? What's your process of, just recognising someone that's got either future talent or is currently very talented?
I mean, there's obviously the easiest way to spot talent is to work with somebody, and then you can say, yeah, they're good, or
the evidence.
They were, but then obviously you've only got, when you're interviewing, we were doing technical tests before talking to them, so we could see they were technically capable, or they got on the internet and found the answers or whatever, and built it. But at least they've built something, and it compiled and it ran. But spotting talent after that, it is key. It's everybody has a talent, and it's showing that as a strength. One of the strengths is to be able to communicate. You have to be able to talk. So, and then you can get them into the business, and then you can start going, do you know what, this guy or this person knows this stuff, they can talk, but maybe they're a bit rough around the edges on how they phrase it or whatever. So then that's where I get to grips with them and say, look, maybe let's reword this email a little bit this way. Let's give them an option rather than a solution. Let's see what the business wants and things like that. So spotting talent. It's I was gonna say it's difficult. It's not. It's just a process that takes some time. And yes, I've worked with some incredible developers, and they are talented in that area. That for example, talented WCF developers or something like that really understand how it works and the intricacies, and if you do this and do that, they've got a talent for that. But then put them in front of a customer, and they may fall to bits. You go, well, no. It was a thing actually I remember at university called the hybrid manager, and it was almost all these things put together. The fact that you are technical and you can talk to people and relate to people. To have that as a group of talents is what people should be aiming for.
Do you think it's an interesting one, because I think there's some people that, if you look at their natural makeup and behavioural preference, they're not naturally skilled communicators, but they're very capable in other ways. Yeah. Have you had experience of those sort of individuals you undoubtedly see in this industry, being able to develop those communication skills in them, or do you find people who that's intrinsically not them, they'll always struggle? Do you see
there's always an aspect of people's roles that they don't like, or they prefer to do something rather than the other, and so they'll always go in into their comfort zone. Now, you've got two choices. You can either say, well, I'm going to try and help you feel better in this, or just say, do you know what? Keep your head down, code away, do whatever you are good at, and we'll
yeah. You don't put them in the position where, because I think that's it. I agree with you that there is a need in the industry, and actually, it's probably for the last 10 years. If I look at the job specs that I've worked on, and maybe it's the type of companies I work with, a lot of professional firms, financial services, legal companies. I worked with some technology companies through the years as well, but perhaps those more professional firms do need a more rounded individual, because that developer is going to have to go and sit in front of the user and gather requirements, but very consistently now see on specifications must be a strong communicator.
What does that actually mean? Shouting at something?
Yeah. Must have loud voice. But I also have this element of me that says that, as you say, we've all got our own unique talent. Well, not necessarily unique, but we've all got our own talents that we should be we should be able to utilize. And I think sometimes the error comes where you spend your effort trying to develop someone in the areas they're not talented, rather than the areas they are talented. Because if you develop someone in the areas they are talented, they're going to be more talented and they're going to be even more engaged. But I guess it's that balance. I suppose there's a minimum level typically that someone does need to be able to speak, and it's particularly, as you say, with scrums and these sort of elements of the more agile ways of working, where communication is a critical element of it.
And that's the daily stand-up. It's a trusted group. People, talk about the positives, the negatives that are happening. And I think as more people get into the habit of talking regularly, and they're not in their cubicle, and they're not surrounded by books because they're from the 1980s. And then, you can go in to places where you see developers, and they kind of are in their cubicles. It's almost like battery hen farming. It's not. It's nothing like that. But what I'm saying,
there's a food pipe and code comes out the other end.
Coke and biscuits coming on. It's we have to know. We have to become more articulate. We have to, because there's two choices. We do that, and everybody goes, brilliant. You're engaged with the business is driving forward, marketing's involved, sales are involved, IT's involved, and all that kind of stuff. Or you go, we will just give them that, and we will keep them as they are. They churn something out. It's not what we wanted, but marketing can deal with that. And almost IT or the development department is seen as this necessary evil. And that's not what we should be doing. We should be supporting the business.
The value comes in the partnership rather than, No,
it shouldn't be a partnership. It should be, I don't want to use the word service, we're on the same level as IT. I mean, for example, the IT crowd, for example, people would go down, oh no, have you tried rebooting it? You mystify the whole thing. It shouldn't be like that. Unfortunately, I think it's changing.
It definitely is. It is funny though, and I imagine through the practice, as you say, of daily stand-ups and the general, collaborative working again in Agile will just build that skill set and confidence and comfort in people that maybe don't naturally have it. So that's all fine. But I do remember a story. It was a few years ago now, but a development company in Edinburgh. I think they were a Microsoft partner, and they had enforced break. Where they were put in a room with coffee and cakes and stuff like that, and then it was like kind of, now you will talk, and they shut the door behind them kind of thing, which definitely didn't work. But they had the problem, and I guess at that time as well, everyone had their headphones on because they were getting in their zone, they were doing their own thing, and that probably was a massive influencer on communication within a room. But apparently, you just walk in the room and when they were working, and you literally, apart from typing the keys, you just couldn't hear anything. Which for me, being only working in recruitment throughout my career. And it's the noisiest industry there is. You walk into an office of recruiters, and there's it's just constant chatter. Because that's just the nature of our
we need that because when you're working in a team, it's like any team, football team, constantly listening what's going on. But I mean, the last place that I was at previously, we would have talks where somebody have an issue about something, and we were sitting quite closely together, and someone would shout out, or I'm having an issue with this. I mean, some people have headphones on because they're concentrating, but the majority of people didn't because they wanted to hear what was going on. They may not actively participate in the solution or how to fix it, but at least they're hearing that Dave or whoever has got this issue. And that, I think that's a valuable learning, a valuable experience for people just to be able to contribute. We are a team, and we will deliver this as a team. So you can live in isolation with your headphones on if you happen to just need to get something done, and that is the right.
But it shouldn't be the norm. It shouldn't be the Yeah.
I want a noisy office because at least there's interaction, talking. There's a buzz about the place. I can't think of anything worse than going to a place where it's just silence, destroying, and I'm listening to Ken Bruce doing Pot Master. Because it's just
no, totally agree. And actually, the amount of stuff that you pick up in your subconscious that you overhear, that you then 10 minutes later, that could help that person. What do you think of that?
The best bit is when you regurgitate something that somebody else has said. I just said that. But I said it differently. No remembers that's my idea.
Excellent. So next question. What advice would you give your 25 or 30-year-old self?
I asked my wife this last night, and she said to marry me. Okay, there we go, fair enough.
Well, you did though. What do you mean marry her earlier than you did?
No. I got married at 25.
Okay.
I spent some time thinking about this, and I think you can go through the classics of don't sweat the little stuff and stuff. And I suppose it does come down to that. It's if I look back, I'm not old. If I look back at my career, there's been some highlights, there's been some lowlights. But everything has been good. If you're comparing it to working in the mines or
we're all lucky in that sense, aren't we?
So I guess it is. Don't worry, it will be all right. You've made a right choice, and you're going to have rubbish days, but it'll be all right. And you're not going to set the world alight, but there are more important things in life than this. Anybody that has children or anything like that, that's what becomes important.
And
later on,
definitely
do this role to enable you to spend more time with your kids and all that kind of stuff. So I think it is. Don't worry, it's not an issue. Everything will be all right. And I suppose I remember being at Nestle and talking to my manager at the time, and I said to him, the film Dumbo where he has the feather, and the elephant cannot fly until he has the feather. And I remember saying to my boss, I just feel like I need that feather. I need that feather to be able to feel I can do this. And you see, you don't need the feather. You're fine. And I suppose it's advice from a manager to somebody else. To me, I suppose you don't need that feather, Steve. You will be all right.
And
there's the imposter syndrome and all that kind of stuff.
You can beat yourself up all day long, can't you? I think.
And you'll never know everything. And that's the
No,
other thing.
no.
Everything.
Someone, I was listening to something the day, and in that sort of vein, someone's advice was you should treat yourself as you would treat your closest loved one. And I suppose in the senses we don't. We're crueler to ourselves than we would be to our worst enemy sometimes. In terms of the chatter we inwardly can have about about anything that you do. But I thought it was quite good. Be kind to yourself, like as kind as you would be to your best or closest loved one, friend, whatever. But no, I think it's something we all suffer from, or most of us suffer from, certainly. But but as you say, I think particularly for me, the point of my second child coming along. A change of work situation at that point anyway, but my view was just so different and my priorities were so different around what
you've got to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
But I think that's the other thing though, is your enjoyment is often a perception as well, and I think if you're looking at it in the wrong angle, and that can bring stress and lack of enjoyment for it, sometimes it just takes a shift of how you're viewing it. Nothing else needs to change, but you just shift your view of it, and actually it can change your experience of it. But anyway,
comparing yourself to your peers, things like that.
That's
something you actually don't want.
No,
so you need to look at what you want.
And beating yourself up around, I should be doing this because it's somehow expected of me from someone else, when it actually isn't. No one else looks upon you and says, but I think that's a more recent lesson for me, is that not being less concerned about my decision or allowing what other people may think influence my decisions, which is a hard one, but as I say, it's something that I think's more recent for me. But and we'll move on. So what technology resource or perhaps more general work productivity tool currently is bringing the biggest impact to your life?
I like using the tomato timer.
Oh, the Pomodoro, is it? Yeah, Pomodoro.
As you might be able to tell, I do get distracted. That does allow me, when I remember to do it, it does allow me to focus.
Yeah.
And it's right, 25 minutes, just that's it. Now, I haven't gone on to the various different stages of saying, well, that's 6 Pomodors and all that kind of stuff, my estimates, and that's it. But it does, when I do start it, right, 25 minutes, turn off emails, turn off everything else, and just focus on this, and that's it. And I think it's a useful tool just to be able to turn off.
Yeah, and I think again, you're one of quite a few people now that I know talk about that as a really good tool to use to whether they've got it on their phone or they've got it sort of integrated into their desktop. Another one that a friend uses, so he uses that, and then he also uses, and I'm looking at my computer because what you're going to laugh at is I have downloaded it but don't use it, which is not atypical of me. I think it's called Rescue Time.
Ah, yes, I heard about that.
Rescue Time, yeah.
Never tell your project manager you've got that on your laptop or desktop, so because then they'll start using it again.
Yeah. I know. I don't think you want to tell any employee, your boss, but and I've used it for periods of time. But, I guess for me it doesn't work solely because I spend a lot of time on the phone, so the system doesn't quite recognize that as an activity. But you get weekly reports. It tells you this is your percentage of productivity. You spent 30% of your time on social. You spent this, and I think I don't engage with it because I'm not someone that intrinsically needs to measure myself or measuring myself in a KPI type of way. I don't really engage with that. But for people who love measuring themselves, my friend that works in the office with me, you can hear him sometimes, yes, and you're like, what's happened? I was 5% more productive this week. You know what I mean?
I think that comes down to the whole principles of trying to reduce waste.
Yeah, efficiency.
The continuous improvement.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that's a good thing, because sometimes you can think, I haven't got anything done today, but I don't know why. And you go, well, here you go. Reading the whole of the BBC Sports section.
So, final one. I guess this is, what books do you most recommend for aspiring leaders? Or I guess for you in terms of still, being a leader but still being that technologist. I guess people that maybe want to head down your avenue as well. What are the books that you recommend?
There's two that I recommend. One is a technical book called The Phoenix Project. It's based on a book called The Goal, and I've forgotten who wrote that.
I'll look it up. Yeah.
And it talks about within a company, the IT department is dysfunctional. Things aren't working properly. You've got a hero mentality, and it talks you through what would have been a very dry subject of this is what you can improve, you can do this, do this, do this. But it's done in a narrative that takes you as the manager through saying, right, well, this is a bottleneck. Let's remove these constraints. Let's protect our head architect because he is getting swamped with various things and there's no documentation. And it talks all about the highs and lows that this company goes through. Now, it's fiction, so it's made up. But I read it and I was like, yes, that you've got a dysfunctional IT area, and they take it to something where what I was saying before about the IT being service and being seen from afar, and it was actually being valued. They were talking about outsourcing the IT company to India or whatever, and they actually showed the value of having it in-house and things working properly and having the right structures in place, and why going to Brett, I think his name was, the architect, all the time, that would be so disruptive. And it just demonstrates that without a major shake-up, with just changes in behaviour, you can, with the same people, you can achieve totally different things. And it's just so nice to read. The other thing that I've read, and it's not technical as well, is Bradley Wiggins' book.
All right.
Actually, it's here.
My time, yeah.
And in there, I think it's very similar to, he set himself a goal to win the Tour de France, and it talks about what he went through to do it. Changing his physique basically to training in his shed in the middle of winter when he was injured, and he made it into a sauna kind of thing because it was the conditions that he would face when he's doing the tour. And it starts off and he's not down and out, but he's in, I think, an Italian airport with a bottle of wine, and he's wondering what he's doing and why he's doing it, and his family's away, and he's Italy is like, what's the whole point? And it's almost like an epiphany. No, I'm going to change my behaviour. I am going to become the best that I can be. And it just talks about the dedication and the retrospective of himself. You can tell I'm a Scrum Master. How to improve what you've already got. And I thought it was very, with my Scrum Master hat on, it was very interesting reading somebody looking at continual improvement and getting feedback in from the system, getting feedback in from Sky, getting feedback in from how his training is working to then continually improve, and how he became, I suppose, the leader of the number one racer within the Sky team, and how that team was formed around him to win that tour. So each of them had their separate roles, separate things they had to do in order for for that to happen. Yeah. So it's an interesting read, and I'd thoroughly recommend it.
Excellent. Well,
a holiday book read.
Well, Steve, that's us all done now. So thank you very much. It's been a really interesting chat, and I'm sure viewers will feel the same. One final thing, just to say from the blog point of view, in the coming weeks, maybe in a month or so, I'm planning to do a Ask the Recruiter video blog. So what I'm looking for people to do is just I know there's a lot of frustrations out there about our industry and how we approach things, and and maybe there's kind of misconceptions about what we do and how we do things. So just wanted to open the panel for if people want to ask me anything about how the recruitment industry works, how best to approach recruiters, how to know the recruiter's doing a good job for you, anything at all like that, I'll be very open and honest. So to viewers, just feel free to message me with any questions you might want to ask. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.